children in this country. And I really want to start by thanking Senator Blumenthal for not just really leading on these hearings, but also for welcoming the Committee on Oversight to participate, but also for your consistent commitment to the reforms that need to happen in this country. So thank you, Senator. It's great, of course, to partner, and we're going to have a variety of members of the U.S. Senate and of the House that will be joining us throughout today's hearing to hear testimony, to ask questions, and to really engage so that we can ensure that the American public understands the real horrors that are happening right now across our country. Now, American citizens, we know, have been illegally detained, assaulted, in some cases killed across this country. Innocent people, we know, have had their rights violated. This has shocked Americans across this country, but it also gets worse than that. As we're going to hear today, children are also feeling some of the worst impacts of Donald Trump's brutality and cruelty and what we're seeing through agencies across DHS, whether it's ICE or other federal agencies. Now, today, the House Oversight and Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation Subcommittee and, of course, us in Oversight are actually releasing a report. It's called Cruelty is the Point: How Trump's Immigration Agenda Endangers Children. And this is a report prepared by Senator Blumenthal and our team on oversight. And so I would encourage folks to get a copy of this report. There's been a lot of important work and stories that have been told. Now, I want to begin by laying out some facts. We know that immigration agents have inflicted physical harm on children across this country. Immigration agents have put children directly at risk during enforcement operation. Children directly have been impacted. They've acted with reckless disregard for children with medical conditions. And immigration agents have conducted operations at schools, daycares, and courthouses. The reality is that ICE is directly harming children and acting without any disregard for their safety. But the American people need to hear these stories, and they need to be documented, which what today is all about. Now, in Minneapolis, for example, in Minnesota, a family with 6 children was driving when agents deployed tear gas and stun grenades around them. 2 of the children have had severe asthma issues, and the youngest is 6 months old. The blast from the tear gas canister knocked the 6-month-old unconscious, and 2 of the other children required medical treatment after the incident. This is horrific, and we should be ashamed. This story is heartbreaking and was widely documented, but it's just the beginning. There are so many other stories. Now, our reports document case after case after case, and I want to share quickly a few of those. In Cicero, Illinois, a 1-year-old girl and her parents were pepper sprayed through an open window by immigration agents in a Sam's Club parking lot. In Columbus, Ohio, 3 girls, ages 18, 15, and 11, were in a car when their mother was deployed. Pepper spray was deployed on the mother into the mother's open car window, hurting and hitting her and her children. In Chicago, Illinois, a 2-year-old was injured when tear gas was sent towards her mother in the park. In California, in my home state in Fremont, a 6-year-old student at the California School for the Deaf was arrested along with his mother and 5-year-old brother at a routine ICE check-in. He was prevented from retrieving his hearing aids and was deported to Colombia, cutting him off from the specialized education that he requires and needs. In April of last year, a 4-year-old U.S. citizen with stage 4 kidney cancer was deported to Honduras with his 7-year-old sister, a story we may have heard. The child's access to his treatments were disrupted. And before he was deported, his mother was not even given an option for him to remain in the U.S. to continue to receive care. And in Maryland, a 15-year-old U.S. citizen fighting cancer passed away just days after his mother was detained. That is cruelty, and that should not be happening in this country. In Texas, a DACA recipient father was arrested while on the way to deliver milk to his baby. This is a U.S. citizen. The baby was just 12 days old and being cared for in an isolation chamber in a nearby hospital's intensive care unit after a premature birth. Speaking from the detention center, the father reported, "I never even got to hold her." And these horror stories just keep going. They should outrage every single American. This is being done by an administration and our own government with no humanity or respect for children. We need to speak up and fight back. And to our witnesses today, you are showing immense courage for being here. Your testimony and your stories are so important. And with that, I yield back and I turn over to the senator.
Thank you very much, Representative Garcia. I want to begin by thanking you for your persistence and courage, your incredibly dedicated work on this investigation and so many other matters before the United States Congress today. This is a spotlight forum, and I wish it were a formal hearing where we would be sitting up at the dais with bipartisan cooperation to root out and stop the kind of abuse that you are helping us to document. Unfortunately, we as members of the minority are uncovering and exposing these kinds of horrific abuses of authority, lawless and reckless, on the part of government agents on our own. But they are no less meaningful than they would be if they were formal committee hearings, because literally thousands and thousands of people are watching as you speak, more than would be watching, in fact, most formal hearings of committees. And so I want to thank not only Representative Garcia, but all of our staff for their dedicated work, and most importantly, our witnesses who have come to be here today, long distances, but most important, a lot of courage and fortitude, because recounting your stories, I know, is painful. Going through the experiences were immensely painful. And then to have to relive them here in public takes a lot of guts. Takes a lot of guts and grit and grace. And I want to thank every single one of you for it. The Second Amendment, the second Trump administration's immigration enforcement has known no limits in its cruelty. They've punished people simply for exercising their constitutional rights, like the First Amendment, that protects people's right to speak and dissent and protest. They've dragged people out of their cars, tear gassed and beaten anyone who happened to be in their path. They've murdered American citizens. But even through all of it, nothing is more emblematic of the cruelty and inhumanity and callousness of this administration than the way they have treated children. We have found through our research cases of 128 children who have been injured, left unattended, or otherwise put at direct risk of harm due to operations of the Department of Homeland Security. This is the Department of Homeland Security. Security. They have made kids insecure and unsafe. They have treated them with a cruelty and inhumanity that is unconscionable and intolerable in the greatest country in the history of the world or anywhere. We would denounce it if it occurred halfway across the globe. And yet it is tolerated in this country. These numbers include 20 children who were pepper sprayed by DHS agents and 10 children who required medical attention due to their encounters with DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. It also includes 42 enforcement operations at or near schools, daycares, bus stops, or other locations where children gather. These stories that we're recounting today are in a report called Cruelty is the Point, And the reason for that title is, in fact, cruelty is the purpose and the objective, consciously, purposefully, and strategically, of an agency that wants to instill insecurity that directly conflicts with its name, Homeland Security. And these cases in this report are just a fraction of the total that exists. We know that many want to hide after they go through this experience. Many want to, in effect, try to forget. And you're the brave ones coming forward. We recount in this report only a fraction of the total number of abuses. At the notorious Dilley Family Detention Center in Texas, officials reportedly removed the children's access to crayons after their drawings appeared in a ProPublica story. You can see here some of what those ICE officials wanted to hide. When will we go home? When will we go home? When will America come home to its values? When will DHS come home to its real mission, security? Our efforts to document and elevate the stories of this regime's heartless actions against children will continue, and we know that there are thousands more stories to be told. In fact, just yesterday, it was reported that the Trump administration has detained the parents of 11,000 children who are U.S. citizens. The headline is, Trump has detained the parents of more than 11,000 U.S. citizen kids, and it's in ProPublica. And I just want to say, part of the reason why we're here today is the persistent reporting of journalists who also have shown indomitable courage in making these stories real. Today, we're going to hear from 6 brave witnesses about ICE and CBP and about how they are terrorizing children in our neighborhoods. These extraordinary individuals have shown incredible courage, not just to persevere, but to come forward and tell the world about the callousness that should shock the conscience of all Americans. It's our 4th public forum. As part of this inquiry, I continue to be amazed by the courage of witnesses, whether they are whistleblowers from within the agency or victims of this brutality of different ages and backgrounds, some on their way to church, others to pick up kids at schools. All over the country, witnesses come today from Massachusetts, Idaho, Texas, California, and Minnesota. Minneapolis was not an isolated instance. We are all Minneapolis. The nation is Minneapolis. And you truly show us that this is a nationwide trauma and speak for many more who have also been impacted by the Department of Homeland Security's conduct. The heartless indifference to the safety and well-being of our children across America is an indelible stain. It is indelible. It is now part of our history. And in making it part of our history and highlighting it today, we want to reverse those practices and reform the agency. And right now, in the United States Senate, we are debating legislation that would, in fact, reform this out-of-control, reckless, lawless agency. The shock value of your testimony today should move our nation and should persuade my colleagues that now is the time for reform. We have to bring this agency home and restore the rule of law in the Department of Homeland Security to make sure that our nation is, in fact, secure. With that, I want to introduce today's witnesses. and then I'm going to turn it over to you for each of your testimony, which I have read. It is in each of your instances very powerful testimony, and I know that everybody here will be eager to hear it. Anabel Romero is an American citizen from Gooding, Idaho, and a mother of 3. She's here today to share her story of being separated from her children during an immigration raid last year. Accompanying her in the audience are, in fact, her 3 children who were here today, and I was very privileged to meet them a little bit earlier today. Thank you for being here. Arnoldo Bazan is a 16-year-old American citizen from Houston, Texas, who is here to share his story of being assaulted by immigration agencies as they attempted to detain his father, who was taking him to school. Zina Stenvik. Ms. Stenvik is the superintendent of Columbia Heights Public Schools, just outside of Minneapolis. Several students from her district, including 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos and his father, were detained and traumatized by Department of Homeland Security agents during Operation Metro Surge. Fernando Hernández García is an 18-year-old American citizen from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Last year, DHS deported his parents and siblings, including his then 10-year-old United States citizen sister, who has suffered from a rare brain tumor. Andreina Mejia is an American citizen from Arrieta, California, who is here to tell her story about being separated from her 15-year-old son, who has special needs, while they were waiting for her daughter outside their local high school. Ana Michelle Ramirez Sanan is an 18-year-old American citizen from Chelsea, Massachusetts, and she is here to tell her story of being restrained by DHS agents along with her 13-year-old brother after her mother's car was stopped. I will make one last point before I turn it over to Ms. Romero. In case you didn't follow my introduction, every witness here is a United States citizen. A United States citizen. No criminal background, no history of wrongdoing, a United States citizen who either is or represents children who have been brutally terrorized by the Department of Homeland Security. Ms. Romero.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me. My name is Anabel Romero. I'm a U.S. citizen, born and raised in Idaho.
If you could bring the microphone a little bit closer.
I am a medical assistant, a wife, a mother of 4. October 19th, 2025 was the day our lives changed for the bad. I took my kids to La Catedral in Idaho, where families gathered on Sundays to watch horse races and spend time together. I have gone to horse races since I can remember. It has always been a part of my life. That day was like any other fun day at the horse races for my family. I went with my stepson and my 3 youngest children, Suhei, 14, Nevaeh, 8, and Alfredo Abel, 6. We watched a couple of races. It was a rainy morning, so the children were in and out of my truck. They got hungry, and I got them some food for them from one of the vendors. There were vendors of all sorts there. The 2 youngest children stayed in the truck with my oldest daughter eating their food. Me and my stepson went to get some food for ourselves and walked to the back to the horse stalls to look at the horses. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I saw a helicopter. I thought nothing of it. Since I work in the medical field, I thought it was probably Lifeline helping someone in need. But then I saw people running and screaming, terrified. Then men in military-style gear stormed in, with weapons at ready. Terrified, the first thing I did was call my daughter and tell her not to get out of the truck and to take care of her brother and sister. I was terrified for their safety. After that, I ran and hid in one of the horse stalls. It was violent chaos everywhere. Armed men barged in immediately. They started grabbing me without letting me know what was going on, who they were, or why they were there. They did not identify themselves. I was asking demanding answers. They started grabbing me. I told them not to touch me, and they wouldn't give me any answers. They kept on grabbing me. One of them threatened to blow my head off. I kept demanding answers, then 5 of them threw me to the ground and started kicking me and punching me. My head was in the shavings, I couldn't breathe, and they zip-tied me in the back. After that, they brought me up, and I told them I needed to get to my children. One of them actually laughed and said they were taking better care of them than I was. All I wanted was to get to my children. I was with dozens of other people zip-tied and herded like cattle to the center of the arena. When my kids and I finally spotted each other, they ran to me, and they started crying and telling me everything that happened. My oldest daughter was thrown out of the truck. She got bruises all down her side, and they wouldn't let her take care of her younger siblings. My 2 youngest were taken from the truck at gunpoint. They are 6 and 8 years old. They were alone and terrified. My 14-year-old daughter had to care for all of them. When my children were with me, I couldn't comfort them. They were crying, and I was still zip-tied in the back, with no answers for why I was being detained or why these hundreds of officers were there. My children had to use the restroom. I wasn't able to take them because they wouldn't remove the zip ties. They didn't even provide restrooms, so many people were forced to go out in the open. The degradations kept mounting on. Eventually, they brought porta potties, and after my 14-year-old daughter was finally able to use the restroom, she was also zip-tied. She started having a panic attack. I told the officers she was underage. She was 14. And it wasn't right. I feared she might hurt herself if she fainted. I asked them to zip tie her in the front. They did, but she was still having a panic attack, and I repeated to them that she was underage, but they didn't care. We waited like that, zip-tied and scared for 3 hours. When my daughter told an officer her zip ties were too tight, he laughed. Eventually, we realized that what was happening, they herded us like cattle and tied us up so the ICE could check everyone's immigration status. Hundreds of people at a family event, grandparents, infants, and all they knew was most of us were Hispanic and Latino. For them, that was enough to treat us and all like criminals and degrade us. While we waited, my children fed water to others because everyone was zip-tied. My children and I are U.S. citizens, born and raised in Idaho like hundreds of other Americans that we were put through immigration process and zip ties. They almost took my kids from me because they have different last names. The raid was 5 months ago, but we're still suffering. My kids are struggling, mentally struggling to make sense of what happened. I am temporarily out of work because I can't focus. That day completely changed our lives. We were degraded, our rights were violated, our sense of safety and security was demolished. My kids and I can't trust enforcement anymore. All that violence was pre-planned and targeted on a Sunday afternoon family outgoing, and not a word of apology or regret after. We deserve better from our government. We demand better from our government.
Thank you very much, Ms. Romero.
Thank you.
And now, Arnoldo Bazan.
I just want to say I'm honored to be here and thank you. My name is Arnoldo Bazan. I'm here today to share the injustice done to me and my family. I am more my peace, safety, and youth. because they, along with my father, were taken from me on October 23rd, 2025. On that morning, my father was driving me to school. We made a stop at McDonald's. We were celebrating because I had made the varsity team. A car with tinted windows flashed lights. When my father then pulled over, multiple unmarked cars approached. Armed men with masks jumped out and started banging on the windows. They never identified themselves or explained why we were stopped. We didn't know who these men were. I started recording on my phone. When my father started driving, one of the unmarked cars rammed into our car multiple times. I even felt our car lift. My dad stopped at a store and ran inside to seek help. Men grabbed my dad and started attacking him. As a son, I could just not sit there, so I ran inside screaming these men to get off my dad. Officers grabbed and ripped my shirt. One officer put me in a chokehold, and the officer choking me told me, "You're done, you're done." His grip was so tight, I wonder if I will even make it out alive. With all of my strength, I screamed that I was underage from the United States. When the officers finally stopped, I began telling everybody who could hear me that these officers had tried to flip our car, and that I had proof on my phone. The same officer who choked me then took my phone. The officer put me and my dad in the car. They mocked us. They told me that I was gay for crying, an illegal idiot, a border hopper, and other demeaning words. These officers even celebrated that they caught 2 people and their bonus will be good. After they took a picture of me, they tried being friendly. But when that didn't work, the same officer who put me in a chokehold threatened me. He told me that my dad will pay the consequences if I press charges. At one point, I asked for my phone, and one officer told me not to worry about it. The officer drove me to my house where my father and I prayed one last time. I tried to hug him, but he couldn't hug me back because I was handcuffed, because he was handcuffed. The officers gave my backpack, but I later learned that my phone was missing. My sister Maria, who is here with me today, took me to the children's hospital where I was sent to the trauma unit. I received morphine for my pain. When I finally recovered, I used the application Find My to locate my phone, 2 miles from where my father was detained. My phone was inside a kiosk for people to sell electronics. Someone sold my phone. When I tried to share what happened to the local police, they told me that they can't do anything to federal officers. I later learned that my father was threatened. Unless he signed papers to self-deport, the government will send me to juvie and federal prison, so my father signed. I couldn't drink correctly for weeks. My body ached for days. I couldn't sleep. I missed school. All of this affects me to this day. When I go to school, I pray I come back home safely. Whenever I hear sirens or I see an officer, my heart starts racing. I don't even know when I'll see my father again. I'm sharing this story so it doesn't happen to other people. This is not the America I know.
Thank you. And now Ms. Stenvick.
My name is Zena Stenvick. I serve as the superintendent of Columbia Heights Public Schools in Minnesota. This testimony reflects my firsthand experience with the presence of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and its impact on my school community. I have also consulted with our licensed school-based mental health clinicians to better understand the trauma responses that we are seeing in children affected by Operation Metro Surge. Columbia Heights Public Schools is located adjacent to Northeast Minneapolis with about 3,400 students, and we have a very diverse student population. Columbia Heights is a designated city of peace and was recognized as an All-America City in 2016 by the National Civic League. In October of 2025, ICE activity began to ramp up in our area. On January 6th, our first student was detained with her mother on their way to school. She was 10 years old. By that afternoon, they had been whisked away to a detention center in Texas. This was the first of 7 of our students who would be detained, including 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos. None of the families I've worked with entered this country unlawfully. They were permitted to be here by the United States government. I personally reviewed their documentation. I saw their alien registration numbers, documentations of their scheduled check-in appointments. It became clear to me that these were not operations targeted towards violent criminals. No, their actions consisted of racially profiling Black and brown people who had happened to drive by where ICE was staged. It became a daily occurrence to see multiple ICE vehicles driving in front of and behind our schools, especially during arrival and dismissal times. There were times where we had to pull kids in from the playground or delay dismissal due to heavy ICE presence near our school grounds. ICE vehicles came onto our school property multiple times. Because many families were too afraid to leave their homes, neighbors transported children to and from school, and teachers walked groups of students home as ICE vehicles circled. Our PTOs, community members, local food shelves, and churches mobilized to provide safe transportation, food delivery, rent assistance, and essential resources to families. Several 16 and 17-year-olds were pulled over by ICE agents while driving to school. I'm not sure if anyone in the room is a combat veteran, but one of my colleagues saw a photo of my 17-year-old student apprehended and flanked by armed men in fatigues, faces covered, and said, "This looks like Fallujah, a war zone, our peaceful community compared to a war zone." The impact on our students has occurred on 3 distinct levels. First are the children who are directly detained in Texas. Those who have returned came home sick, and their parents forced to wear ankle monitors despite no crimes being committed. Second are the children who were sequestered in their homes for months, attending school virtually out of fear. The third group includes students who are not in any danger of being detained, but lived in constant fear due to the pervasive ICE presence in our community. These students ask questions like, can I be taken? Will my mom be home from school or home after school? 6 of our 7 detained students have returned home, and most of our elementary students have come back to in-person learning. However, as they return, we are observing clear and concerning signs of trauma. While children are resilient, and I'm cautious to not generalize trauma, the patterns we are seeing are consistent and significant. We are seeing increased separation anxiety, with students struggling to be apart from their parents during the school day, after months and months of confinement and fear. We're seeing heightened difficulty with transitions. One student who was detained in Texas now experiences distress when leaving the classroom to go to art or gym class. He reported that separation from their trusted teacher and classroom removes a sense of safety. We're also seeing increased stress responses, such as fight, flight, freeze, among students who experience direct or indirect trauma. Students are more fearful of strangers and unfamiliar vehicles, particularly SUVs or individuals in uniform, which they often associate with ICE agents. Even distant sirens can trigger anxiety. During a recent tornado drill, some students asked whether they were sheltering because of ICE. Children are expressing deep concerns about housing instability, food insecurity, financial hardship. Many have experienced abrupt moves, leaving behind belongings and facing uncertainty about their future. These experiences are contributing to a profound sense of instability and insecurity. While there are signs of gradual improvement and students are expressing excitement about going outside and returning to everyday activities, there remains a persistent underlying fear of ICE and family separation. Operation Metro Surge will have lasting and deeply harmful effects on our students, families, and broader school communities for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stenvik. Now, Fernando Hernández García. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for the honor of being your guest today and the opportunity to share my story. My name is Fernando Hernández García, except it's not. That's my name that I have to use to protect mine and my family's safety. Over 1 year ago, my life has completely changed. One morning, my little sister woke up and told my parents that her head hurt. My parents took this very seriously because the year before, she had an emergency surgery to remove a tumor. My parents and my 5 siblings got in the car and drove from South Texas to Houston so she could see a specialist at Texas Children's Hospital. On the way, government officials stopped them at the checkpoint and deported everyone, even though my parents told them about my sister's condition, even though my siblings are U.S. citizens. I wasn't with my family at the time, but I was familiar with the route and process they took to get my sister to the Houston to go visit her doctors. We did this several times without issue previously before the Trump administration took office. I was visiting relatives out of state when I received a call from my parents that they had been detained and would soon be deported. I remember this day like it was yesterday because it was the last day I remember feeling like a kid. When I heard the news, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what I was going to do. My mom worried about me returning to our home in South Texas alone, but I had to finish high school, and I wanted to make sure I could do everything in my power to stay on top of the bills and keep the home my mom and dad had sacrificed so much for. Over the past year, I've worked hard to make sure I was the first in my family to graduate from a U.S. high school. My parents were not there to celebrate this honor with me. I began working multiple jobs to send money to my family, keep up on housing payments, and when possible, continue advocating for my family to return home. While my friends planned for college, joined the military, and started working towards their career goals, I spent all of my time working. I still do. Even being here to advocate my family has impacted my ability to work. I can't think about the things my peers are doing because I honestly can't relate. When I have a small moment of free time, I call my parents so they know I'm all right, so my siblings can hear my voice. When I call my mom, she tells me how my sister can't get the treatment she needs in the rural part of Mexico they're in because she isn't a Mexican citizen. How she's getting worse by the day, having a lot of the same medical issues she had when the brain tumor was diagnosed. She has a novel medical condition that needs specialized care. My dad recently got a job that requires him to travel a lot in Mexico. It pays better, but the road can be a dangerous place, she tells me. I could hear the stress in my mom's voice, and I just wish I could take the weight off her shoulders. The situation is a nightmare that I can't wake up from, that my family can't wake up from. My baby sister needs to see her doctors, but she needs to get the care alongside her family. I need my family to come home. I'm 18 years old. I still need the support of my parents. I need to be around my siblings. I've been dreaming of going to college, but that isn't something I can do without the support of my support system, both financially or emotionally. You can say all you want about these awful immigration policies don't impact U.S. citizens, but that's a lie. My family was ripped apart from me and my future along with them. If my parents were still here, they would have pushed me to go to college, to dream big, and they would have helped me to make it happen. Now, I don't even think I have the time to do that. My baby sister could die as a result of this mess. Today, I've been asked several times how you can help me bring my family home, save my sister, end this nightmare for me, for all the other families like mine who just want to live an honest life and are hardworking for a better future.
Thank you very much. Andrina Mejia.
Hi, my name is Andrina Mejia. I'm a 36-year-old mother of two. When the incident happened with me and my son, it was on August 11 before they went back to school. I was enrolling my daughter in her upcoming high school, where me and my son were waiting in the car, and I just remember I seen these two cars approaching my car. I literally thought they were gonna crash into us. Two individuals with masks on covering their face, they got off pointing their guns at me and my son. One came on my side, the other one went on my son's side. They handcuffed him, and I was confused. I just told my son, follow directions, listen to what they're telling you. Just because in my mind, I'm like, I don't want them to shoot my son. So I got off, and the person who was next to me was telling me that they were looking for an individual, that they thought that was my son. So they showed me a picture on their phone, and they told me, this is your son? I'm like, no, that's not my son. So I told them, can I go to my son, because I saw my son was nervous. At the time, I was speaking to a friend on the phone, and she told me that all she could hear my son responding to the other individual who had him handcuffed was, hi, my name is Baldemar. I'm 15 years old. I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm in special classes. So after that, they took the handcuffs off. They allowed him to come to my side. And the person who was with me just told my son, oh, we just confused you with somebody else, but look at the bright side. You're going to have a exciting story to tell your friends when you go back to school. So I looked at the guy just questioning, there's nothing exciting about having guns pointed at you like if you're a criminal. After that, I had to wait for the police to file a report. And I was really upset just by the fact that they left bullets in front of my car on the floor. So I took pictures of that. And after that, I saw the news and I seen that the LAUSD had done like a conference meeting where they said that the LAPD had reached out to Homeland Security, told them that, oh, can you send your people back because they left ammunition on the floor? And they said that their response was they were laughing and they're like, oh, no, we don't need them. You could just keep them so you could practice your targeting. At that moment, I'm like, when you have a son that's in special classes, he has trouble hearing, he wears hearing aids, he has a speech delay, my mind was, I have to protect my son at all costs. If I don't protect him, nobody will. So I'm just thankful that I was there to protect him, because I just think about that day, and I just think if I wasn't there to protect him and my son would have gotten scared, what about if they would have just, they would have shot him or something. So, I mean, it's been kind of difficult for him to go to school. He will wake up crying. He sees cars with tinted windows and he's scared. He tells me, Mom, is it them? I'm like, no, it's just a regular car. So right now he's doing a bit better, but he says that sometimes he can't sleep.
Thank you very much. Now, Michelle Ramirez Sanan.
Thank you for the opportunity to share what ICE did to my family. It's very hard to talk about, but I hope that telling our story will help stop ICE from hurting other families who are being targeted just because of their race or where they live. My name is Michelle Ramirez Sanan, and I am a high school student in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Next year, I will start college. I have a younger brother who has autism, and we live with our mom, who takes care of us on her own. We are all very close, and I'm very protective of my brother. Since President Trump took office, it's been hard to see so many people hurt by ICE. Because my brother and I are U.S. citizens and my mom has a legal status, I felt like my family was safe. That all changed last year on September 26th, when my family was stopped by ICE in our neighborhood. When I found out, I rushed to get to them as fast as I could. When I arrived, the first thing that I saw was our car with shattered windows. I was terrified that my mom and my brother were already gone. Then I saw them surrounded by ICE. My brother was crying next to my mom, who was being pushed against the fence and handcuffed. Most ICE officers were wearing masks. I could see they had guns. I ran to try to get to my family, but I was blocked by a masked officer who grabbed my wrist. My brother doesn't speak very much because of his disability. He doesn't know how to explain that he's an American citizen. I was terrified that the officers were going to hurt him or take him away. I tried to protect him by yelling out, "My brother has autism." But instead of helping him, the ICE officer kept blocking me and told me to shut up. I heard my mom cry out in pain. ICE officers slammed her on the ground and everything froze. I was so scared that she was hurt, that she wouldn't be okay. The ICE officers finally let my brother come to me, and I gave him a big hug. He was crying. Then I saw that ICE was trying to take my family into one of their cars. I couldn't understand why, because she has a legal status. I was terrified that we would never see her again. I have asthma, and I started having trouble breathing. I didn't know what we would do without my mom. She is all we have. Finally, the local police arrived and told ICE to check my mom's ID. They did and let her go. A neighbor brought us water, and I sat with my brother and tried to calm down while the paramedics held my mom. We were then taken to the hospital in an ambulance. The entire incident lasted about half an hour. but my family and I will never be the same. Since that day, I have had a harder time focusing in school, taking care of myself, and managing my anxiety. I have had trouble sleeping and headaches. I was so excited to join my senior year before starting a new chapter in college. But now, I spend so much of my time wondering why this happened to us. What if the police didn't get there in time to stop ICE from taking my mom? What if ICE comes after us again? Each time I leave my house, a part of me worries that I won't get home safe. But I also see how much my mom and my brother are struggling, so I try to be strong for them. It is especially hard to see the way my younger brother has changed. Because of his disability and age, he's had a hard time processing what happened. Even with medical and professional help support, he went from always wanting to go out to now just wanting to stay at home. He spends more time alone, he has nightmares, and cries a lot. The first time he tried going back into our car, he called me crying and had to get out. I worry about what will happen when I'm no longer living at home to support him and my mom. To stand up for our rights, we filed a complaint against ICE with the help of lawyers for civil rights in Boston. I am speaking out today for the families who can't speak against ICE. I am speaking out today to help understand people who ICE is hurting. I am a citizen. I am also a sister, a high school student, and a daughter. I like drawing, dancing, and spending time with my family. Kids and teenagers who look like me aren't safe even if we're in our own communities, even if we follow all the rules. ICE may have let my family go, but they took so much more for us. They made me feel like my family didn't matter and that no one would care what happens to us. Thank you for the opportunity to help show that people do care and that we are all human beings no matter what.
Thank you very much to all of you for your testimony. We're going to have questions now from members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate is actually in the midst of a vote right now. So Senator Klobuchar and I are going to have to run to vote. I'm going to yield to her first. Each of us is going to have 4-minute rounds, and I'll yield to her for part of my 4 minutes. I'll ask maybe one question, and then I'll turn it over to Representative Garcia while I vote, and then I'll run back because I don't want to miss any more of the questions than is possible. But
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
yield
you,
to
Senator Blumenthal. In a
Klobuchar.
Senate fashion, I'll take all 4 minutes. I will not. I just want to thank you all for being willing to share your stories. And I wanted to especially acknowledge Superintendent Stenvik. She is an example of heroes standing up for kids, and you did it day after day after day. And it's one of the reasons that when the Twin Cities got the Profile and Courage Award, which is yet to be awarded but announced, from the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award, that it wasn't just Minneapolis. There have been beautiful ballads written about Minneapolis, but it was really the entire area where people were standing up. And I'm so glad, both of you, that you called this great superintendent from the suburbs, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Senator. And you should know, Superintendent Stenvik, that Senator Klobuchar has been a tireless champion for Minneapolis and Minnesota. She reminds us every day about the need to keep in our hearts and minds the people of your town and cities and others in Minnesota. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar, for being here. Let me ask you first, Ms. Romero, you left for the horse races. These are a community kind of gathering on that morning, and your children were excited. It was the beginning of a normal, even good day for all of you. And it ended in tragedy, whether it was going to that event with your family, celebrating an achievement over breakfast at McDonald's, or excitement of enrolling in school. What could have been a lasting, wonderful memory became a nightmare, tainted by DHS's callous and reckless reckless action. And a number of you have referred to the trauma of this experience, the nightmare. Let me ask Arnoldo, I understand that the day you were assaulted by agents started as a happy one when you were going to McDonald's with your father. What's it been like for you since then to try to balance school and trying to process what happened to your family that day? It must continue to be painful.
It's been really complicated to get back what I used to get to. And I feel empty inside without my dad. How I said my dad was my best friend. He was a person I could really get with. I feel very empty. I feel in a way where I feel like things are just not normal. I try to go back to things, but things don't get back together, you know? And I just feel sad sometimes. I feel like my family needed my dad's support. I need my dad's support in a way because he will really help us in every way possible. He was a good man.
Thank you. Fernando, you've been left alone, right?
Yes.
And what's it been like for you missing all of your family?
I mean, obviously, I miss them. I can't go visit them. I wish I could. But sometimes I talk with my parents whenever I have the time to. Sometimes I talk about my sister or my parent or my dad. Sometimes I get to see my sister over a video call. And that's how I get to see them sometimes.
Thank you. Ms. Stenvik, you commented on the impact not only on the individuals involved, but on the entire community, the ripple effect. Maybe you can expand a little bit on that point.
Yeah, no child is unscathed in my school district by Operation Metro Surge. There was, a cloud of fear encompassing our entire community. So everyone was impacted, not only our children, but we have staff who were impacted, and all of the community members came together to support one another. So that meant standing out in below zero weather on every corner of every school to protect children. So like I said, the layers of trauma and impact are very pervasive.
Thank you. I am going to run, and I'll turn it over to Representative Garcia. He can call on members of the House in order. Thank you. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Senator. First of all, you're all incredibly courageous. Thanks for being here. Superintendent, thank you for your testimony and for your leadership. I know it's been very difficult. You testified about the trauma that you are seeing in your schools, to the children, to the families. You reported that federal immigration agents have circled your schools, coming into school parking lots and following school buses. Unreal, not acceptable, and every American should be concerned what's happening in schools across the country. Now, Liam Ramos was one of your students. We've gotten to know Liam's story. Now, we also know that Liam was used as bait to lure his mother from her home so that she could be arrested. Simple question, is Liam a criminal?
Absolutely not.
Does targeting your students like Liam do anything to make our country safer?
Absolutely not.
The administration claims to be going after the worst of the worst. That is a complete lie. Is Liam the worst of the worst?
He's a great kid.
A great kid, and they are hurting 5-year-olds. Liam and his family are from Ecuador. They are immigrants. Liam actually won't even wear that hat anymore because he's scared to identify himself. He was taken to Dilley Detention Center, over 1,000 miles away. This is a place where hundreds of children have been locked up and held. This place, parents and immigration lawyers have described children there losing weight, finding worms in their food, suffering severe mental health challenges, getting inadequate medical treatment, and even standing in line for hours to get a single dose of medication. Some have suffered emergencies while being detained. Now, is it also true that there were 7 other children that were detained from your schools?
Seven of my students were detained. 6 ended up at Dilley.
This should disgust every single person that hears the story, and I want to thank you. It's an outrage. Innocent kids are suffering because of what's happening right now across this country. Arnoldo, I want to go back to your testimony. You shared what happened to you. You're in the 10th grade, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you talked about your dad and you getting breakfast together at McDonald's, which was kind of something that you guys did. I relate to that. I'm an immigrant kid. My family and I went to McDonald's all the time. It was a place where we would go and we bonded as well. That's where mass agents stopped you, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the government actually said, falsely, that your father rammed his van into one of the officers' vehicles. Your own video of the incident, which you took heroically, by the way, shows that agents rammed your van 4 times. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, they lied to cover up their own crimes and brutality. Now, did you know that they were law enforcement?
No, sir. They never identify themselves.
So they never identified themselves. Now, your dad is arrested, he's beaten, and you actually try to help him. And after the agents tackled you, one agent pressed his knee onto your back while another put you in a chokehold. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm disgusted, of course, that this has happened to you. Now, you told the officers that you were trying to go to school. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You told the officers that you were a U.S. citizen. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is how they responded. I want to show you another picture here. And I know we've shared with you that we were going to show this. It's concerning. They were so brutal that you needed medical attention, as you can see here. A nurse at the hospital where you were taken actually called 911 to report to the police that you had been choked and beaten, and you were repeatedly called slurs by the officers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What are some of the names that they called you?
Illegal son of an alien, border hopper.
They called you gay for crying as well?
Yes,
They
sir.
called you a criminal? They called you a beaner, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
As I understand, while you were being assaulted, you were told the agents that you had filmed this on their cell phone, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's when they took your phone away.
Yes, sir.
These agents didn't just take your phone, they sold it. They pawned it at a kiosk for $250 cash. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
This is Donald Trump's America. He wants violence, terror, chaos, and ICE shouldn't get one more penny from this Congress or from this budget. I apologize to you for what you've had to go through. That should have never happened to you, and I'm so sorry. We're going to investigate, we're going to demand justice, and we're here to stand up for you and so many others across this country. With that, I yield back my time, and I want to turn this over to Representative Khanna from California.
Thank you, Ranking Member Garcia. Thank you for convening us today. Ms. Romero, I was so moved by your testimony. You were in Idaho at a horse race with your kids, and is it correct that ICE officers then came up to you and said that they would blow your head off?
That is correct.
That's the exact language they used?
No, they used, we're going to F and blow your head off.
That's just disgusting. And is it true that they said they could take better care of your kids than you could?
Yes, they did say that.
How did that make you feel as a mom?
Angry. I wanted to just run and go get my kids. I was just angry and scared for them.
And you're an American citizen, correct?
That is correct.
And Mr. Bazan, I wanted to hear your story. It's true that the ICE agents put you in a chokehold?
Yes, sir.
And how long was this chokehold?
Like 1 minute.
And what were you doing while they were having you in a chokehold? Were you trying to ask for help?
I was screaming everything I could, what happened before we got to that situation.
And they just ignored it?
They just ignored when I said I was a 16-year-old underage, U.S. citizen. He told me I was done.
And you had to go to the hospital afterwards for medical treatment?
Yes, sir.
And the nurse basically looking at you knew you had been assaulted?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Ramirez Sanan, you testified so passionately. I was so heartbroken when you talked about your autistic brother and your mother, and that they threw your mother to the ground. And when you talked about your autistic brother, they told you to shut up. This is going on in the United States of America under Donald Trump. I believe we need to arrest and investigate these ICE agents, hold them accountable. But I also believe that this agency, while it has been egregious under Trump, has been violating people's rights since it was founded. Frankly, through Bush, through Obama, through Biden and Trump, it has violated rights of Americans and of immigrants. Trump is just the most egregious case. And what your testimony shows is we need to tear down this agency and we need to start afresh with a totally different agency to actually uphold people's rights. So I'm appreciative of your courage today.
Thank you, Congressman. Representative Emily Randall.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranking Member, and thank you to all of you for being here today and being willing to share your painful stories to help shed light on what is happening in our country. Your courage allows us to show the American people how the Trump administration is harming families and children. And I want to specifically take a moment to recognize the young people testifying today. Arnoldo, Fernando, and Michelle, you are brave, you are valued, and you deserve to be safe in this country. By sharing your experiences, you're helping us in our fight to end the pain and cruelty that this administration is inflicting on communities all across this country. As we've heard today, the Trump administration is not going after the worst of the worst, as they promised America during the election cycle. According to DHS's own data, 74% of individuals in ICE detention have no criminal history conviction, and only 7% of the people arrested by ICE between January and October 2025 had been convicted of a violent crime. In Washington state, the youngest person arrested by ICE was only 3 years old. Trump and Stephen Miller, the architect of this dangerous immigration agenda, are sending ICE and Border Patrol to look for people to arrest on school campuses, in McDonald's parking lots, and families who are driving to hospitals for urgent medical care. Schools used to be places that were considered off limits to ICE and Border Patrol, but this administration has rescinded those policies designed to protect schools and other locations where children are present. Now, instead of focusing on reading and math and art, kids and teachers are battling Trump's paramilitary goons in spaces where they should feel safe. I get texts from my teacher friends almost every week about how they feel like they need to prepare to keep their classrooms safe, to keep their students safe. And the Trump administration is once again separating families, this time by holding them in inhumane and unsafe detention facilities and deporting the parents of children who are US citizens. Last week, a 19-year-old tragically died while being held in Glades Detention Center in Florida. This is horrific, and this administration has blood on its hands. Trump and Miller are harming an entire generation of children with both physical and emotional violence. Ms. Mejia, thank you for showing up and sharing your story. I grew up with a sister with disabilities, and I know firsthand that our government is not built to serve the needs of individuals who have more complicated needs. As federal agents separated you from your son, you tried to explain to them that your son has speech and hearing disabilities. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when they learned that your son has disabilities, did they begin to interact with him any differently?
No.
After the federal agents realized their mistake, did they apologize?
No.
Instead of apologizing to your son, one federal agent acted like the whole thing was no big deal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it correct that federal agents went on to say that your son would have an exciting story to tell?
Yes.
Do you and your son feel like federal agents pointing guns at you and handcuffing your son is exciting?
No.
How has this interaction with federal immigration agents impacted you, your son, and your family?
Well, it was scary, first of all, because like I said, I was enrolling my daughter. So as a single mom, I always go on protect mode when it comes to my kids.
Yeah.
So knowing that my son really doesn't understand what people tell him, I have to break it down to him in a certain way where he's able to understand.
Yeah.
And just to see the fear in his eyes and the way he came back to me and hugged me and he was shaking. So I think about it and I think about it, and it's like I relive it over again. And I think I'm just so thankful that I was there to protect him, because having his disability, not understanding what's going on out of nowhere, having guns pointed at you, I was just thinking, if I went inside the premises of the school with my daughter and I would have left them alone in my car, imagine if I would have came out and he would have been on the floor, shot or something. So I'm just thankful that I was there. I mean, he still has trouble, but in the beginning it was really hard, to the point where I would be driving and I had to pull over because he would literally break down and cry.
Thank you so much for sharing. You shouldn't have had to experience that, and we will continue to do everything we can to advocate for no further money to ICE without any protections for American citizens, for the people of this country. You deserve better.
Thank you. Representative Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member, and I want to thank our witnesses for being here today and for the courage to share your stories with us. The testimony we've heard reveals the impact of the Trump administration's mass deportation agenda, and it makes clear who these policies are harming. Thousands of children who pose no threat to public safety. Despite the administration's rhetoric that their agenda is focused on criminals or the worst of the worst, as we heard, 74% of people in detention have no criminal conviction. As of March, nearly 1,000 children have been detained by the Trump administration, longer than the court-ordered 20-day limit. Thousands more have been detained fewer than 20 days. So despite what President Trump and his cronies at DHS claim, these are not policies making America safer. They are creating an American nightmare for thousands of children. Children who are being held in facilities like the Dilley Detention Center in Texas, sometimes for months, with inadequate medical care, inedible food, and unsafe drinking water. And study after study has documented the impact of detention on children. And a 2025 British Journal of Psychiatry study found that there is no safe period. No safe period. Not 1 minute of detention is safe for children. But the Trump administration doesn't care. When Todd Lyons, the acting director of ICE, came before the Homeland Security Committee, I asked him whether he was aware of this study or the impact of his policies on children. He said no, he hadn't read it, wasn't aware of it. He's responsible for these policies. But we don't actually need the studies to know the impact of detention on these children. They're telling us. I have a 5-year-old, and I know that sometimes young children can't express themselves through words, but they might use pictures. These are some of the pictures from kids at Dilley. This is a picture of a family. Child wrote, "When will we go home?" This is another. I am 5 years old. I want to go to school. I miss my bear. I'm 5 years old. I want to go home. These are what the children are telling us. Since the publication of some of these drawings, art supplies have been taken away from children at Dilley. So when they cried out to the world through these drawings and others, our own government silenced them by taking their crayons. That's what's happening. Superintendent Stenvik, we all know the image of Liam. We know some of Liam's story. I wonder if you can share with us, based on your knowledge, what happened to Liam after this photograph, after his family's detention. What do you know about his experience in detention, and how are they readjusting to life today?
Well, I had six students who were detained at Dilley, so I can speak on behalf of all of them. I arrived shortly after Liam had been taken by 8 armed and masked agents with his father. I arrived to console his mother. Students are telling me who are coming out of Dilley. I have a fifth grader who waited in a waiting room on chairs for 17 hours before someone came to talk with them, and then had to wait for another 36 hours, so about 50 hours total, without food before actually being processed and entering into Dilley. That child also, when asked about, we've heard the stories about the water quality and the food quality. I asked, I heard that there's teachers. What was the school like? And this boy scoffed and said, that's not school, that was coloring, clearly before the art supplies had been taken away. Like I said, all of our students who have returned home from Dilley returned home sick. So we know there was a measles outbreak. We had a mobile medical clinic come to connect with each of the families who returned, just to check on their health and well-being. And then, of course, our mental health providers, our school-based mental health providers have been working around the clock and on the weekends with our families to help process the return and the trauma.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Tlaib.
Thank you all so much for being here. I just want you to know there are so many people that can't come and tell their story because of fear. And in many ways, you sharing your stories could possibly save more lives. So I want to thank you so much for speaking the truth and having the courage to use your voices for others. It is very important for everyone that's listening. There is no humane way to detain a child. No humane way. There is no humane way to arrest a child. There is no humane way to deport a child. Yet ICE is doing all three, subjecting our children, even the smallest infants and babies, to extreme violence, cruelty, and lifelong harm. There are too many horrible stories to count. Chair Garcia was texting and saying how horrific it was, and I told him, I don't know how much I can scrape on top of my lungs to say enough is enough. A child is a child. A child is a child, no matter where they are in our country. And for a 6-month-old baby who stopped breathing after being tear gassed, how is that not enough? Children are held at gunpoint. How is that not enough? Teenagers like Arnoldo, hospitalized for serious injuries after being put in a chokehold. How is that not enough? In the beautiful city that I grew up in, the city of Detroit, Michelle Durante, a high school student, only a few credits away from graduating Western International High School. He was racially profiled and arrested by federal agents on his way to a school field trip. He was torn away from his loving community and deported. It didn't just traumatize him, but our whole school community. Enough. Superintendent, did you know, I was an immigration attorney for a long time. We had to force the Obama administration to come up with sensitive locations. We actually had to tell, this is before Trump was president. I want people to know, ICE and federal agents and Border Patrol has been doing this for a long time. Now they're just enabled even more and getting more violent and more aggressive. But we had to pass policies to tell them to stay away from our schools, from our health centers, from funerals. This is an agency post 9/11 that was created to do exactly what it's doing now. And so many people that come after me and so many of us that continue to say, mask or no mask, they will still kill us. They will still put our kids in gunpoint. They will still do what they did to Arnoldo to another child. And so we already know that this is trauma that, again, no matter how much we try to heal, it is such a permanent damage. You may not see it on the child, but it's permanent. And so, Mr. Hernández Garcia, your parents, when I read your story, your parents were deported to Mexico like a year ago, and you're 17 years old, and you've been taking care of yourself. How has the separation really affected you?
Well, first of all, I couldn't graduate with my full credits. I graduated with a partial diploma, I think. So I can't go to whatever college I want. I need to go to the STC first. I am the one that takes care of the house, bills, everything. I send money to my mom. Sometimes I send food. I get in contact with him sometimes. I basically manage everything.
So I just want you to know, I'm the eldest of 14. I was just, whose children? I don't know who it was, but they were guessing how many brothers and sisters I have, and everybody always gets it wrong. And so Arnoldo, I just want you to know, I can feel the weight on you to take care of your parents, even though there's not a lot of folks to be able to take care of you here. There are community mothers that care for you, and I hope you reach out to us and understand that we have your back and we love you, even if our own federal government continues to target our communities the way they are. I've been taking care of people all my life, and I'm just now learning, late in my time, that it's okay to ask for help. And I'm just asking you, because I read your story, and it just reminded me of, the fact that I don't want you to ever feel alone. And even though I know in maybe a few years they might start apologizing, I'm so sick and tired of our government apologizing for the violence and death and destruction that they do over and over again. And I just want you to know right at this moment, just want you to know there's a lot of people watching, and that we love you and that we want to be able to take care of you. Okay? Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you. Just wanted to also just follow up, Mr. Garcia, I just wanted to follow up also on some of the questions. 'Cause I think it's important for folks to know that when you were stopped by Border Patrol at the border station, correct me if I'm wrong, but your family was traveling to get care for your sister, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so your sister has a rare brain tumor,
Yes, sir.
is that correct?
Yes.
And I know when this happened, they were rushing to the Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, and that's when they were stopped, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And for people that have never passed through a Border Patrol checkpoint, these checkpoints, you have to provide identification. That's the way it works in this type of system, is that right?
Right.
And so your parents had been able to pass in the past. They had been able to go through these checkpoints several times by presenting your sister's birth certificate and a letter from the hospital vouching of the ongoing life-saving treatment. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
But on that day, things were different. Instead of letting your sister reach her emergency medical care, that's when they detained your parents, your sister, and your other siblings. And instead of taking her to the local hospital, they confiscated your sister's medicine. And instead of letting your family return to you, they deported them a day later. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to kind of restate the circumstances because I just can't imagine any human being with any sort of core or love of family to sit here and listen to that and to think that that is okay. And I don't care what political party you're in. I don't care whether you have children or not, but there is no circumstance where that is acceptable. Not in this country, not in any country. And the fact that there are people in this Capitol that want to continue to fund this terror of our people should make everybody sick. There shouldn't be a penny more spent for this to happen to you and to your family. And you are so brave to be going through everything that you're going through. And just know that I know it's hard, but there are people that are trying to fight and to change this horrific and corrupt system that continues to cause this kind of pain on people like you and your family. And so just please know that. Representative Randall.
Thank you. Mr. Ranking Member, sitting here and listening to your stories just continues to make me more and more angry about what our neighbors, what you are going through. Early in my career, I worked in fundraising for a children's hospital, and I remember the story of a family who came from Mexico one day, packed their suitcase, came because they had been looking for life-saving care for their child unsuccessfully, and their last-ditch effort was to come to the U.S. to get care for their son. And they were able to. They were able to safely get care. They were able to get a diagnosis. And then we told that story over and over and over to donors of all political persuasions who were excited to fund life-saving care at this children's hospital. And I think about the contrast between that story and the story of your sister and your family, Mr. Garcia, and the fact that not only would ICE and Border Patrol not ensure that your sister had access to her medication, but would take it away and not allow her to go to her appointment and really put her life at risk. All for this agenda that was meant to be ensuring that criminals are not on our streets, but what is actually happening is that they're terrorizing families and killing people in the streets and setting up barriers for life-saving care for families like yours, for sisters like children like your sister. And it's really, it's unacceptable, it's inhumane, it's wrong, and we will continue to fight for more money to be invested in attacks like this on our communities and our neighbors. I also have been thinking a lot about a friend of mine who is a school counselor and who told me the story of a young man not dissimilar from you, whose family, whose father was deported and whose mother moved their family to another home to be safe. And it was just outside of the school district lines where he was on track to be the first in his family to graduate, who had a clear pathway to college, who was such a leader in his school, but now had to figure out how to get enrolled in online school and work full-time to take care of his family. My friend, the guidance counselor, has been trying to figure out how to be supportive to him, but he's no longer one of her students, and she worries every day about what his path will be. Ms. Stenvik, your work in Minnesota and the care you've shown members of your school community are a model for districts across the country. How have the ICE and Border Patrol surges in your community impacted the health and the traumatic stress of children that you're seeing?
The Operation Metro Surge has greatly impacted the mental health and stress of all of our children. They're displaying different types of trauma responses, whether that's fight, flight, or freeze. They are triggered by, the need to separate or the need to transition from one classroom to another. They're triggered by noises out on the playground. So it's greatly impacted them, and we know that this will, it's going to be a long haul, that process of recovery. And so, that also is going to have a financial toll on my school district in terms of needing, not only are we going to need academic recovery, but we're going to need social, emotional, mental health recovery as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm going to recognize Senator Padilla if he's ready to go.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, Representative Garcia, all my colleagues here in the committee, and especially to all of you for being here. I don't think you can hear it enough from us to just say thank you for your willingness to come and share your stories. Thank you for the courage to speak publicly, because this has been difficult times for the country, but for each of you, especially given what you've been through. Ms. Romero and Ms. Mejia were practically neighbors. I grew up in Pacoima, and what happened was in Arleta High School wasn't even there when I was growing up, but I know the story all too well. Your families, our community has had to witness particularly the treatment of children, U.S. children, is unconscionable. And so can you keep telling us just a little bit more about not just what happened, but how it's affected your family? What's life been like since? Ms. Mejia?
I mean, it took me a while to get back to how I was before, and my son is barely getting there. Before he was this happy kid, even though his disabilities, he's a very, very likable kid. Everybody who meets him automatically, he fights with his sister, obviously, like every sibling, but everybody who gets a chance to meet him, I have never heard anybody, not even teachers, not his old school, heard about what happened to him. They reached out, and actually one teacher was really upset. And ever since then, he's just, in the beginning, he was like, I can't concentrate in school. People kept telling me, just pull him out, put him on online classes. But I was like, why do I have to isolate him from his friends, from him going to school? I mean, it's not his fault. He went through what he went through. He would just wake up and be like, oh, I can't sleep. Like, are they gonna come back? Everybody has their own story. He didn't feel safe, but I just had to be strong for him and be like, you know what? We're gonna get through this. I mean, I'm here. I'm always gonna protect you and your sister. I mean, I'm all they have.
And those are obviously normal questions for him to have, normal feelings for him to have, and you're working through the immediate and short-term impacts of the experience and the trauma, because that's what it is. Have you guys talked about, what do you think about in terms of the long-term effects and what you'll have to work through in the years ahead?
I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I just question myself, and I just want to know if he has a hard time expressing his feelings to me, where daily I have to ask him, how do you feel? Because he tells me one thing, but then his teachers tell me another thing. They tell me that they constantly communicate with him and tell him, okay, if you feel that you can't concentrate, just come, we'll put you in a room. They've been very helpful, and they have always been supportive to where they tell him, if you feel that you just need a breather, just come here, talk to us, and we'll help you. So he's getting there. I mean, it's better than how it was in the beginning.
Good. Well, it's going to take time, and
Yeah.
that too is normal. But it sounds like not just from the family side and the teacher side, but from the community perspective, there's a lot of support
Yes.
around you, which is great. Question for Arnoldo and Fernando. You've shared your experiences. You've been answering some of the questions here. If you could speak to the people in the White House right now, or the new leadership at the Department of Homeland Security, what would you say to them? You have a message for them? We'll start with Arnoldo.
The message I'll give towards them is that, do they even realize what they're doing to these innocent families? These innocent families are just people just getting their kids to follow their dreams, chasing their dreams. And my message to them is, do they even know what's happening out there? It's just they don't know what's going on. They're acting like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Fernando?
I would tell them, do you guys have a heart? You keep deporting little kids, families, separating them. Imagine if that was you. How would you feel? Take a moment to put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if that was you in that moment?
Yeah. As much as I like to also wonder, do they really know what they're doing? It's hard to think they don't know what they're doing. It's been going on for almost a year now. It's all over the news. It's all over social media. They've heard from the public. They've heard from us. The question in my mind isn't do they know, it's do they care? It's their opportunity to change things. It's gone too far. It went too far a long time ago. And we're going to keep pressing to make sure things change. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Senator Padilla. I think Representative Garcia will recognize.
Thank you. I think Representative Walkinshaw has some additional questions.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Romero, your story, all of the stories are powerful. Yours is particularly insane when I read what you and your children went through. And I just want to ask you a few questions to give us some more details about what happened. So when the immigration agents found out that you and your children were separated from each other at the horse race, did they offer to help find and reunite you and your children?
No, they laughed at me and said they were taking better care of them than I was.
Okay. And when they approached your truck and they were trying to get your children out of the vehicle, were they calm and respectful? Did they demonstrate any concern that perhaps the way that they acted might cause trauma or harm to your children? What did they do to get them out of the truck?
They didn't care what trauma they caused my children. They actually pulled my 14-year-old daughter out of my truck. I have a lifted truck, so it's a pretty high fall for her. She fell. She got dragged out. She got pointed guns at her. They opened the other door for where my other two children were at, and they were screaming, "Whose children are these? Whose children are these?" And my daughter was screaming, "Those are my siblings." And they had guns pointing at my two younger ones, and they're pulling them out, and they wouldn't let my daughter go to them because they were restraining her, and so she actually had to escape them and run to the other side to go get my other two children because they were trying to take them away from her.
So they pointed their guns at your children. Give us the ages again of the children who had guns pointed at them.
14, 8, and 6.
Okay. One of the things that the Trump administration said after this incident is that no children were zip-tied during the raid. And we've heard the Trump administration lie time after time after time after these incidents, and courts have found them to have lied time after time after time after these incidents. Other than your 14-year-old daughter, do you think or believe that did you see other children zip-tied during the raid?
Yes, there was other children. There was actually another child that was actually younger than her, actually zip-tied. There were several that were age 14, her age 16, 17. Yeah, so there was a variety of different ages of children zip-tied.
Okay. And when the agents realized that these were young children who were present, did they make any effort to release the families quickly so they could care for their children?
No, they didn't care. All they did was when we were getting to the tent to get processed by ICE, all they did is if you have younger children, come to the front, but they really weren't caring. They just told us if we had younger children to go, but that's when the tents were already popped up and ICE was already there to run us through to make sure that we were U.S. citizens.
And adults, those of us here might make a distinction between ICE, CBP, federal immigration agents, and local police officers or law enforcement, perhaps. But children, for the most part, probably aren't going to make that distinction. When your children now see a police officer, maybe a local police officer, how do they react? And is it different from the way they would react before this raid took place?
They get scared, but more than anything, they are scared of the soldiers, the people that are fighting for our country, because of the way that those officials were dressed. They were dressed in military type gear, which they are not. And so my children are afraid to see that, of people that are fighting for our freedom and everything. They are afraid of them as well, which they shouldn't be.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Representative Wilkinshaw. I have a few questions as part of this second round. Let me first say, Ms. Romero, I'm a dad. I have 4 children. They're now in their 30s, but I can remember well what they were like at the age of your children. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be assaulted, zip-tied, and completely unable to reach my children as masked agents began rounding up everyone around me. I have a picture here which I believe that you took. This picture is of the marks on the hands of your 14-year-old daughter after she, too, was zip-tied. You also spoke of your younger children being forced from your truck at gunpoint. Maybe you can describe what it was like to see your daughter zip-tied and your children treated this way right in front of you.
Honestly, I felt helpless, like I couldn't do anything to help them. Like, as a mom, you want to protect your children. I saw, after I repeatedly told the official that she was 14, she was having a panic attack in front of her, they wouldn't listen. I felt so useless as a mom. Like, I wanted to protect my daughter, and I couldn't. And for them to tell me that my kids were brought out at gunpoint, it's the hardest thing for me to process still to this day. I have never left a bruise on my daughter, never have done anything to my kids to cause them trauma or anything. Why are other people doing this to children? Not just my children, but to other children. It's a mother's worst fear for your kids to be traumatized, to get hurt or anything. Why are other people doing this to our children when we're trying to do the best to protect our children?
This memory has stayed with you. And I'm sure it will stay with your children at some level as well. And I know you as a mom will do your best to overcome it. Are you aware of it now as you deal with your children?
It's hard.
Well, again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, I want to focus on your story for a moment because I think it has really a number of different shocking elements. Your siblings, all except one of whom are now U.S. citizens, were deported with your parents. And I understand from your testimony that your family was going to the hospital for your sister to see a specialist for her unique medical condition. You spoke in your testimony about how hard it's been for your sister, harder, in fact, than it would be here to get critical care that she needs while she's in Mexico. Do you know whether her condition has been getting worse?
Her condition has been getting worse. Right now, it's to the point where it's basically like if the tumor's back, her eyes are experiencing like if they're failing again, like if she had the tumor again. I know she's been getting a lot of headaches. She can't get the care in Mexico because they keep denying her because she's not a Mexican citizen. So my mom keeps fighting for her. At one point, they did take her in, but then they keep refusing to take care of her, and I can't bring her here.
And I understand that your parents have asked ICE to allow them to enter and live in the United States temporarily to assist your sister in getting the medical treatment she needs. Have your parents heard anything about that request?
No, we have not.
And it's been pending, I think, now for 9 months, and you've heard nothing.
I think so.
So, just to sum it up, the Trump administration could allow your parents to temporarily enter the country so your 11-year-old sister who needs medical care, who is an American citizen, who could get that specialized care in this country, it's specialized care she needs to survive, has been denied it. I guess I have to say this cruelty is simply inexplicable. And I'm sorry you're going through it. I'm sorry for your sister and your family. And again, my thanks for being here today. Finally, let me just ask all of you. Each of you has talked about the violence, unimaginable violence that you've either witnessed or experienced yourselves. And despite those experiences and the fear that each of you may have felt, you've come forward with courage to tell your stories. Why is it important for you? Why is it important for each of you? And I'll go down the witness table for the world to know these stories. Why is it important for you that the world hear you and see you? Ms. Romero?
It is important for me to get the word out so other families don't go through what I'm going through with my family.
It's important for me to spread what's going around so that other people don't have to suffer or like people go through the same pain me and my family went through.
I actually did not want to originally speak up, right? I denied many, many media requests for weeks. And because of fear of retaliation, and I worked closely with my school board chair, really talking about this scale between helpful and harmful for our community, for our school district. And the day that little Liam was taken, he was actually the second child taken from our district that day. A 17-year-old was detained earlier in the morning. And there were just ICE agents everywhere, all around our schools, and we just felt so saturated. And then, you know, in supporting Liam's mother, she asked us to speak up. And it was at that moment where we decided it's time for people to hear the truth of what's actually going on. And we decided we couldn't be any bigger of a target at that point. So it was about telling the truth. You know, I'm like been given the charge to care for 3,400 children and almost 600 staff members. And so that's really important. And I know, you know, teachers love their students as though they're their own children, right? These are our children too, and we care about our families and our students. And so it was about telling the truth and with the hopes that this would come to an end.
Thank you.
It's important to talk about this so that we, the people, can stop the abuse and danger to families. That way we can stop deporting civilians to other places. And that way we can spread the word out to stop the organization from doing horrible things.
I just wanted to share my story because I know that there's more mothers that have kids with disabilities that maybe they're immigrants and they can't speak for their kids, but I feel that I could be the voice of kids with disability and just, I mean, we're all human beings, you know. We deserve to live a normal life without the fear that we can't go nowhere because they could target us because of our skin color or just by the way we look. So I just wanted to share my son's story for that.
It is important that we speak up because we as children do not deserve this. We as human beings do not deserve this. My community is very small and not known, so I am here to speak up for Chelsea from Massachusetts because we need to get this around. We need to get help because as people, we do not deserve what most of our families are going through.
Thank you all. I'm going to just say nothing that I could say now can match the power and eloquence of your statements. The work of our committees didn't begin, and it's not going to end with this fourth hearing. And your testimony today encourages and emboldens me to continue with this work. I am grateful to the House members who are here today and my Senate colleagues. We have a busy day with votes, as you have seen, but I know that my colleagues are deeply interested in what you had to say here, and I want to express my gratitude again to Representative Garcia. We are listening. We will hear more testimony in the weeks ahead because DHS has to be held accountable, has to be reformed, has to be changed to stop, as you have said so powerfully, this kind of brutality happening to others. And with that, I'll yield finally to Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, again for hosting us and for these opportunities to hear these really courageous stories. I just want to thank all of you one more time and just want you all to know that the courage and you're telling your story, the story of your family, is powerful and it makes a huge difference. And what you're doing here today is actually going to help so many other people across this country. It's going to bring change. It's going to uplift other stories. And you're truly all heroes. As it relates to us, we view you all as the heroes that you are. And so thank you again for being here. Thank you, Senator.
With that, we are adjourned.